You don't need soil to start a protein system. You need a bucket of water. But there's a catch. If that bucket isn't set up right, it won't grow food. It'll grow smell. There's a plant, one of the smallest flowering plants on Earth, that floats on still water and, in the right conditions, can roughly double its biomass in about 48 hours. Not weeks, not months, days. It's called duckweed. Some call it water lentil. Scientists call it lemna or wolfia, depending on the species. If you've ever seen a pond with a thin green layer sitting on top like a living carpet, you've already seen it. Most people walk past it. Today, we're not talking about a pond. We're talking about your bucket. A 5-gallon container on your porch, your patio, your back step, or next to a garage window. A small living system you can start in 5 minutes, observe over 48 hours, and harvest repeatedly if you understand how the system works. And that's the key word, system. This isn't a plant you drop in water and ignore. It's a living system that needs balance. Get the balance right, and the bucket keeps producing. Get it wrong, and within a few days you'll smell it before you see it. In this video, I'll walk you through what duckweed actually is, how to set up a working bucket in under 5 minutes, why the doubling happens and what stops it, the mistakes that turn a protein bucket into a problem bucket, how to harvest without destroying what you built, and a simple formula you can use before this video is even over. Let's start with the plant. Duckweed is not a trend. It grows on every continent except Antarctica, on ponds, slow streams, rice paddies, and quiet water wherever conditions allow. It's been part of natural water ecosystems for a very long time. Here's what makes it unusual. Most plants invest energy into structure. Stems, leaves, root systems, they build architecture. Duckweed doesn't do that. A single duckweed frond, the tiny oval you see floating, is the entire plant. No soil root, no stem. It floats, absorbs light from above and nutrients dissolved in the water below. And when conditions are right, it reproduces by budding a new frond from its side. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8. Under the right conditions, the right temperature, the right light, enough dissolved nutrients, not too crowded that doubling can happen roughly every 24 to 48 hours. This isn't a marketing number. It's a documented biological rate that applies when the environment actually supports it. On a dry weight basis, once the water content is removed, some duckweed species contain between 25 and 45% protein, depending on growth conditions and species. That puts it in the same general conversation as legumes when we talk about plant-based protein density. But I want to be clear. A bucket of duckweed is not going to replace your grocery bill. It won't replace your eggs, your chickens, or your protein powder. What it can be, in a controlled, small-scale system, is a real and renewable source of protein biomass that you grow in a container, harvest regularly, and use in specific ways. Many people use duckweed primarily as feed for chickens, ducks, and fish. That's one of the most practical uses at the backyard scale. If you want to explore it as a potential human food crop, you need to be more careful about source and water quality. We'll come back to that. For now, understand what you're building. Not a miracle, a system. 5 minutes. That's genuinely how long the initial setup takes. The physical steps are simple. The learning curve is in what comes after. Here's what you need. A container. 5 gallons is a great starting size. A standard bucket, a wide plastic tub, a storage container, anything that holds water and doesn't leach chemicals. Wide and shallow beats tall and narrow. Duckweed is a surface plant. It wants horizontal space. Rinse your container clean with no soap residue. Water. Tap water works, but let it sit out 24 hours first. Or use dechlorinated water. Chlorine can stress a small starter culture. While water is often fine, collected rainwater in a clean container is excellent. Nutrients. Duckweed needs dissolved nitrogen and phosphorus. In your bucket, you provide them intentionally but carefully. A very small amount of aquarium plant fertilizer works. Diluted liquid fish fertilizer works well, especially if you're planning to feed the harvest to chickens or fish anyway. The starting amount should be conservative, a few drops per gallon, not a tablespoon. Overfeeding is one of the most common ways systems crash. Starter duckweed. This matters more than people expect. Do not scoop duckweed from a random pond, drainage, ditch, or any water source with unknown history. Wild source duckweed can carry pesticide residue, heavy metals, or harmful bacteria. Get your starter from a reputable aquatic plant supplier, an aquaponic or homesteading community seller, or someone already running a clean system who can share a culture. Know where your duckweed came from. Light. Bright indirect light or gentle direct sun, about 4 to 6 hours of good light per day. A south or east facing spot with morning light and partial afternoon shade works well. Full midday sun in summer can spike water temperature in a small container and kill your culture fast. Indoors, a grow light 12 to 18 inches above the surface running 10 to 12 hours works fine. The starting layer. Here's the first mistake most people make. They add too much duckweed on day one. You want thin coverage. About 30 to 40% of the surface, not wall to wall. The duckweed you add today is your seed, not your harvest. It needs room to spread. A crowded start means slow growth and early problems. A small handful for a 5-gallon bucket. Spread it gently, let it float and settle. That's your setup. Container, clean water, small nutrient dose, clean starter culture, good light, thin layer. Place it somewhere stable, observable, and out of harsh afternoon sun. Now walk away and check it in 24 hours. But the setup is not the secret. The balance is, this is where most buckets fail. Not on day one. Usually around day 3 or 4 when someone gets busy, doesn't check, and comes back to something that smells wrong. Most of these failures follow predictable patterns. Once you know them, you can catch them early. Failure 1. Too many nutrients. More food does not mean more growth. Duckweed needs only a small amount of dissolved nutrients. Add too much fertilizer or let organic matter break down faster than the plants can absorb it and you trigger an algae bloom. Algae competes directly with duckweed for nutrients and light in a closed container. Once your water turns murky and green or brown throughout, not the clear with green surface look of a healthy system, you're losing that competition. Start with very little. Add more only when growth stalls and water stays clear. Failure 2, too dense. Here's the irony. Duckweed grows fast, and if you let it cover the entire surface without harvesting, it starts to damage itself. A thick mat blocks lower layers from light and creates low oxygen zones in the water below. As those lower layers die, they decompose, feeding bacterial growth, adding organic load, and producing the sulfur rot smell that tells you the system has already been failing for a day or two. That smell isn't the duckweed. It's what happens when organic matter breaks down in still low oxygen water. Harvesting isn't optional, it's maintenance. Failure 3. Temperature spikes. Duckweed grows best in water temperatures between roughly 63 and 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Above 90 degrees in the water, you can see rapid die-off. A 5-gallon bucket in direct afternoon summer sun can hit that in hours. Keep your bucket in morning sun and afternoon shade during warm months. If you're in a hot climate, shade the container with a propped piece of window screen. Failure 4. Contaminated source. Duckweed is efficient at absorbing things from the water it lives in. That efficiency is useful in controlled systems and dangerous if the water carries herbicide residue, heavy metals, or pathogens. Wild harvested duckweed from unknown water is not safe to eat and can introduce contaminants into your system even for animal feed use. Start clean. Use verified sources. Change out a portion of your water regularly. Failure 5. Mosquitoes. Still, water attracts mosquitoes. A healthy, dense duckweed surface actually provides some barrier mosquito larvae need to reach the surface to breathe, and a tight mat makes that harder. But a crashing system with patchy coverage and murky warm water is exactly where larvae thrive. Keep the system healthy, and that's most of your mosquito control. You can also add BTI Dunks mosquito control tablets using Bacillus thuringiensis israelensis, which are safe for plants and aquatic life and specifically target mosquito larvae. Check your bucket every 2 to 3 days. If you see wrigglers, act immediately. Failure 6. Harvesting too hard. This one catches people who actually got the system working. They harvest too much at once. The bucket looks full of green, so they take a big scoop and clear most but regrowth from near zero is much slower than regrowth from 40 to 60% coverage. You've reset the system back to the beginning. Harvest no more than 20 to 30% of the surface at a time. Use a fine mesh strainer or a small net. Skim from one side, leave the rest undisturbed, and let it fill back in over the next few days. Reading your bucket, a healthy system. Bright, even green surface, small uniform fronds, light open mat, relatively clear water below, no strong smell. A struggling system, yellow or pale fronds, check light and nutrients. Brown fronds falling apart, temperature, contamination, or oxygen issue. Algae bloom throughout the water, reduce nutrients, do a partial water change. Sulfur, smell, decomposition below the surface, thin the mat, and change some water. Mosquito larvae, BTI, dunk immediately. Patchy or clumping surface, overcrowding in spots combined with air movement, redistribute gently. Each one is a diagnosis, each has a response, the system tells you what it needs, check it often enough to hear it. A working 5-gallon duckweed bucket running well can produce a meaningful amount of biomass on a regular basis. Fresh does water, so dry weight yields are smaller than they look, but harvested consistently and used intentionally, it adds up. The most practical use at the backyard scale is feed. Chickens love it. Ducks especially love it. It's literally in the name. Fish in a backyard pond or tank can be fed small amounts regularly. If you're raising any of these animals, a working duckweed bucket is a genuinely useful feed supplement, renewable, low cost, and already proven in aquaponics systems. If you want to try it as a human food, some duckweed species, particularly Wolfia, have been consumed in parts of Southeast Asia for a long time, and research into duckweed as a future food crop is active and serious. Approach it carefully. Your water quality has to be controlled and verified. Your starter culture has to be clean. Wild harvested duckweed from any unknown source is not safe to eat. If you're running a clean system and want to experiment, rinse it well. Research preparation methods, start with very small amounts, and do your own safety checks. Check your local food safety guidance if you're in the US. This is still a novel ingredient for most Western kitchens. For most of you, the right starting point is this. Feed it to your animals. Watch how they respond. Track your feed costs. Let that be the experiment for the first season. That's a completely valid and genuinely useful thing to do with a 5-gallon bucket. Here's what you take with you. A clean bucket, no residue, no chemical history, you don't know. Rinse it and start fresh. A thin starting layer, about a third of the surface. Give it room to double into. Crowded starts produce slow growth and early crashes. Bright, indirect light, 4 to 6 hours minimum. Morning sun, afternoon shade, or a grow light, indoors. The light drives everything. A small amount of dissolved nutrients, a few drops of diluted fish fertilizer or aquatic plant fertilizer per gallon. Start conservative. You can add more. You can't undo an algae bloom. 48 hours of observation. Don't set it and disappear. Check it. Look at the surface color. Look at the water below. Smell it briefly. A healthy system shows visible growth in 24 to 48 hours. A failing one shows warning signs in the same window if you're watching. Harvest a portion, not the whole surface. When coverage hits 70 to 80%, take 20 to 30% off. Skim from one end. Leave the rest. You are not emptying a container. You are keeping a small system alive. One bucket, one thin layer, bright indirect light, a little nutrition, 48 hours of attention. Harvest a portion, keep it going. That's it. That's the whole system. I want to be straight with you about what this is and what it isn't. It isn't a magic solution. It isn't a complete protein replacement. It isn't something you set up once and never think about again. What it is, if you run it right, is a small, real, renewable biological system that produces something useful on a regular basis. For most of you, that means chicken feed or fish food. For some, it means an experiment in small-scale food production you'll learn by doing. And the learning happens fast with duckweed. You're not waiting 6 months to see if something grew. You're seeing feedback in 48 hours. You can make a mistake, catch it, and fix it in a way that a seasonal vegetable garden simply doesn't allow. Start with one bucket. Give it 2 weeks. See what happens. Save this before you try it because the setup is easy, but the balance is what keeps the bucket alive. And if you want to follow up on what to feed the bucket after week 1, how to adjust nutrients, handle your first small crash, and scale from one bucket to a working multi-container system, comment bucket below. Thanks for watching. Now go find a bucket.